vote to nominate.
I told Olivia. Did we skip the Article 2?
2, 3, 7, and 18.
All right.
Good evening, and welcome to the special town meeting of Monday, October 2nd, 2023. I got the green light on. I could yell. Thank you. That's what they think of me. All right, good evening, and welcome to the special town meeting of Monday, October 2nd for the town of East Bridgewater. I'm going to read the list of out-of-state residents that are attending, out-of-town residents. Liz Legall, Superintendent. Michael Cornigely, Power Executive Assistant. Jay Phelan, Director of Special Ed. Kate Burns, Central School Principal. Matt Paquette, Mitchell School Principal. William Silva, Junior Senior High School Principal. Charlie Seelig, Town Administrator. Rebecca Johnson, Assistant to Town Administrator. Lee Nguyen, Principal Clerk. Michelle Dahl, Assistant Town Clerk. Russ Hannigan, EBCAM Director. Alex Welch, Conservation Agent. Jean Marie Joyce, Health Agent. Chris Kenny, Town Council. John Clifford, Town Council. Jessica Henderson, Library Director. Megan Crosby, Treasurer Collector. Paula Wolf, Director of Assessing. Ryan McGonigal, IT Director. Patrick Franny, Building Commissioner. Jason Trepania, Water Superintendent. So if we have to have a hand vote, that section that I'm pointing to up in the, that's for non-voting people. Thank you. I just want to say you won't be counted if you're sitting there. We're going to have Ms. Kavanaugh read the warrant. Oh, one more important thing. Would you all stand and join with me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Mrs. Kavanaugh.
Hi. To any of the constables of the town of East Bridgewater in said county of Plymouth, Commonwealth of Massachusetts, in the name of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, you are hereby directed to notify and warn the inhabitants of the town of East Bridgewater who, being qualified to vote in elections and town affairs, to meet at the Junior Senior High School, 143 Plymouth Street, in said East Bridgewater, on Monday, the 2nd day of October, 2023, at 7 p.m., then and there to act upon the enclosed articles, to wit, in case all articles in the foregoing warrant shall not be acted upon at the meeting called for on October 2nd, to meet in adjourned sessions at such time and place as the meeting shall determine. You are directed to serve this warrant by posting a copy thereof attested to by you in writing in each of the 6 public places in the town, at least 14 days before the time for holding the meeting. For holding the meeting called for in the warrant. Herefore, fail not, and do return of this warrant, with your doings thereon, to the town clerk of said town, on or before the 14th day of September 2023, given under our hands this 13th day of September in the year of our Lord 2023.
Thank you, Ms. Kavanaugh. For anybody that's new here, how this works, we're going to go Articles 1 through 18. I ask for a motion to be made by the presenting party. If you'd like to speak on that motion, you have to come to the mics and I will recognize you. Article 1, Ms. Julius, Board of Select People.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move that the town vote to transfer funds totaling the sum of $56,739.80 from account 1-0-359-3590 free cash to the account numbers as printed to fund a retroactive payment for the FY 2023 fire union contract.
I have a motion, do I have a second? Motion made and seconded for discussion, if any, Ms. Julius.
No, I think it's pretty self-explanatory.
Okay, any further discussion on Article 1 as presented? Seeing none, all in favor of Article 1 as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Article 1 passes. Now, I'm going to entertain a motion to pass over Articles 2, 3, 7, and 18. Do I have a motion from somebody from the Board of Selectmen?
Make a motion.
Motion made by Mr. Pagone. Do I have a second? Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? These articles are being taken off the warrant for tonight. Is there any discussion on those articles? We're going to do them all so we don't have to go each one. So it's 2, 3, 7, and 18. Seeing no further discussion. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? So those are off the warrant tonight. 2, 3, 7, and 18. Article 4, Mr. Walsh.
Make a motion to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from funds available or otherwise provided the sums recommended or any other sum or sums for capital outlay for the town departments as set forth in the following schedule, and determine whether such sums will be provided by taxation or by transfer or by a combination thereof.
I have a motion, do I have a second? Second. Motion made second. Mr. Walsh, since you're the proponent, I assume Capital Committee.
Capital Committee met, voted on these articles. Two of them are actually capital ones, the IT director, the $25,000, and the school department, $48,000. But the Capital Committee did vote to approve.
Thank you. Mr. Walsh, in discussion? Thank you. Any further discussion on Article 4 as presented? Seeing none, all in favor of Article 4 as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Article 4 passes. I'm going to declare the two-thirds. I'm declaring two-thirds. Article 5, Mrs. McGowan, Board of Selectmen.
Yes, Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate a sum of $85,000 to restore budget cuts that were reduced at the annual town meeting that was held on May 8th, 2023, as printed.
Not everybody does everybody.
Motion, do I have a second? Motion made second, Mrs. McGowan, for discussion, if any.
Nope.
Any further discussion on Article 5 as presented?
Mr. Moderator, Catherine Wolf, 272 Laurel Street. I wasn't at the gym or many meetings because I was very ill, but it does say something about you have $20,000 for cruisers, and I'm wondering how you're ever going to find a cruiser with $20,000, or is that just for maintenance?
You want to defer to
Yeah.
Chief Jenkins?
Chief Jenkins, yes.
First time, Mike, under fire. And we congratulate Chief Jenkins for becoming chief last month.
The overall budget was increased to $120,000. The previous year it was $100,000. Obviously, the cost of cruises and everything else has gone up, so they felt they had to put the money back in to cover the cost of new cruises. An average new cruiser now to outfit is probably over $60,000 plus. So just so you're aware.
Thank you.
$70,000.
Thank you, Chief. Any further discussion on Article 5 as presented? Seeing none, all in favor of Article 5, let's say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Article 5 passes. Article 6, Ms. Foster.
The purpose of paying costs for a feasibility study for the renovation, repair, and/or replacement of the Central Elementary School, 107 Central Street, East Bridgewater, Massachusetts, including the payment of all costs incidental or related thereto, and for which the town of East Bridgewater may be eligible for a grant from the Massachusetts School Building Authority, MSBA, said amount to be expended under the direction of the Central Elementary School Building Committee. To meet this appropriation, the town treasurer collector, with the approval of the East Bridgewater Select Board, is authorized to borrow said amount under and pursuant to MGL Chapter 44 or pursuant to any other enabling authority. The town of East Bridgewater acknowledges that the MSBA's grant program is a non-entitlement discretionary program based on need as determined by the MSBA, and any costs the town of East Bridgewater incurs in excess of any grant approved by and received from the MSBA shall be the sole responsibility of the town of East Bridgewater, and that the amount of borrowing authorized pursuant to this vote shall be reduced by any grant amount set forth in the feasibility study agreement that may be executed between the town of East Bridgewater and the MSBA.
Thank you. I have a motion. Do I have a second? Motion made, second. Ms. Foster, why don't you stay there for a minute? Unless you're going to have to defer to somebody, because you're going to discuss, if any.
This article appropriates money to be used for a feasibility study to assess the condition of Central School and possible paths forward. We are working with MSBA, and if we continue to work with them, we can be reimbursed 57%, about 50%, 57.6% of the project.
Thank you, Ms. Foster. Any further discussion on Article 6 is presented? We'll go here first.
Okay?
Yeah.
I was already.
No, somebody right behind you raised their hand, too.
I'm sorry. Karen Gilman, member of the Finance Committee.
You have to say your address, too.
87 East Street.
Thank you.
I have a statement related to the Central School Building Project Feasibility Study, and this statement is from the Finance Committee of the town. The East Bridgewater Finance Committee would like to express support for members of our Central School community and understand that our youngest students deserve to have a safe and engaging place to learn. We also do not dispute the fact that the Central School building has myriad deficiencies and likely needs to be renovated or replaced. However, committee members are concerned about the process of undertaking such an important and costly project, especially regarding the so far inadequate planning and lack of communication by the newly created School Building Committee. The Finance Committee addressed these concerns during its most recent meeting on September 26, 2023. The committee thanks the school department for reconsidering the composition of the School Building Committee by expanding the representation on this committee and by making each member of the School Building Committee a voting member. In addition, the committee would like to ensure that if such a project is undertaken, accountability and transparency will be incorporated throughout the process, and controls will be in place to monitor the project's trajectory so that all milestones are met. In order to ensure that adequate controls are in place and timelines are being met, we respectfully request regular updates on a monthly basis, either in writing or in person at Finance Committee meetings. If such controls are established, the Finance Committee has no objections to moving forward with the planning process, including the funding of a feasibility study at this time.
Thank you, Karen. So, Karen, hold on a second. So, just so people know, the Finance Committee recommended this article?
We did recommend the article,
Okay.
yes.
And Capital?
Capital Committee recommended it also.
Thank you. Thank you, Karen. Yeah. Sir?
Kevin Dupuy, I live at 38 Old Plymouth Street. I was just curious, maybe you guys could explain why exactly is it going to cost $1.5 billion for them to look at the building and tell us if we need a new one? I mean, they could just ask the teachers and the staff and they could tell you whether or not they really need a new building.
I'm going to defer to Ms. Foster, but I'm sure it's part of the process. Ms. Foster?
If I may address the previous statement first.
Yeah, you can address both.
That's fine.
Sure.
I just
Sure.
want to say that I watched both the Select Board's meeting and the FinCom meeting last week, and heard the concerns. The concerns have been received by the committee. Also, to your question,
Make sure you speak into the mic.
sorry.
okay?
A feasibility study is required by the MSBA to make sure they have a full picture of the school before they can help us decide which direction to go in.
Thank you. She said that the MSBA requires a feasibility study as part of the process when you're applying for further work. Mr. Litchfield?
Yes, sir. Mr. Litchfield, 788 Bridge Street, East Bridgewater. Tonight, when we came in here, we were getting a brochure on the cost to replace this school would be around $80 million. Now you're asking us to appropriate over $1 million tonight to see if we're going to renovate the old school. Don't make sense. Are we going to renovate the old school, or are we going to build a new school? And under the feasibility study, has anybody come up with the idea where the new school is going to be built? And it's going to be built with the town where the sewerage and other things. Also, what are we going to receive from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts on the 57%? This month alone, natural gas went up 13.5%. We don't know what the cost is going to be to renovate these schools or anything else. We're being asked tonight to vote count blank for over $1 million for a study. Somebody should be able to here tonight and tell us what it's going to cost to renovate the old school. We have a price of over $80 million for a new school. Very shortly, we're going to have the East Bridgewater Police Department coming in here looking for another police station. How much more can the taxpayers in this town take, and where's it going to end? I've been in the oil business all my life. I've never seen it this bad in this country as it is right now. There's got to be a line here drawn someplace. Years ago, I was instrumental in designing some of the schools within the Brockton area. And you notice most of the schools now are designed from one set of plans. And these plans are used throughout the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to cut down the cost of architecture fees and other things. We cannot continue to give this government, or any government, count blank day in, day out. My taxes are going up, your taxes are going up, but our wages are not going up. How do we fund these programs when we got nothing coming in? You're on the present time looking to do over a $4 to $5 million project on Route 18 for sewerage. Where's all this money coming from, people? Tonight, with no questions here before these people, you're asking for over $1 million to be spent for a feasibility study. You got no idea you're going to get money back from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts on this grant. Is there any money left over for the stimulus on 5/19 that the town did not spend and could be used within this program? There's many questions that should be asked, and somewhere along the line, we should be able to get the answers. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Litchfield. Any? Mr. Walsh, and then I'll go to Mrs. Wolf. Mr. Walsh.
Me first?
I'm going to you first, David.
All right. Just for some clarification here, feasibility study is needed in order to move forward with a program to build the school. The reimbursement, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, will occur if we move forward with either a reconstruction, a renovation, or a construction. If we don't move forward, we get no reimbursement. Now, one of the challenges I see here from the statement that was just read to you is that there's not a lot of information been put out there to folks. I don't know how many meetings the school committee, building committee had before September 1st, when they got organized in May. My biggest concern is one of the things that are in that letter is that there is accountability throughout this process. There is no question in my mind we need to do something. This is the first step. How we got to this first step, to me, is questionable without the amount of information that's been put out. But I must say, it is something we need to do. We may not like how we got here, but it is a direction we need to go. And I would highly recommend significant increase in communication from the schools and the building committee to the entire community, not just people on parent list from the schools. That's all I got to say.
Mrs. Wolf.
Yeah, Kathy Wolf, Laurel Street. I moved into town when we were working on the middle school project. I absorb those taxes, even though I didn't have anybody in school yet. When my daughter started school at the central school, you know, I paid my taxes. The school was already old. She started there in 1992, and the school had already been around for over 40 years. It was built in 1951. I just know Bob McCarthy isn't with us anymore, but I know he got up many a time and spoke to us about the importance of the future of our community, the future of the United States, and it's in our children. If our children don't have a good education, we're the only ones to blame. If they don't have a solid building that's safe and secure and good teachers, we're the only ones to blame. If it means we have to give up eating once, you know, we go out to eat twice a week and we only go out once because we have to pay more in taxes for the children, it's our duty. Now, I'm not super patriotic, but I do know that I want America to be a wonderful country, and it's in our kids. This proposal of $1.5 million, assuming we're going ahead, which we have no choice at this point, we need to have a new or renovated school. The kids are taking classes in, what are they called?
Modules.
Exactly, modules. Yeah, they're not actually even in a regular building. I hate to think of what the gymnasium looks like now. I remember what it looked like back in 1992, and it was a disaster then. We need to know what the actual condition of this building is before we can go forward. No matter what, we need to do something about our elementary school. And that, to me, is not a choice. We just do it. We have an opportunity to receive a 57.74% refund from the state. We were in the top 5 of over 20 school systems who need work in terms of this proposal. If we, in fact, don't go forward with this at all, and then decide 2 years later that we made a mistake and we want to try again, we're at the bottom of the barrel. We would be behind, who knows, 300 schools at that point. Why sacrifice that position? We know we need it now. It's 2023. That school has been around as long as I've been alive, and that's a pretty long time, guys. So I just want to say I am wholeheartedly behind this. I understand the Finance Committee's concern about people being attentive and following through on where they stand, what's happening, the committee. If anybody knows me at all, they know I'm a really good accountant. So I'm all behind the finances. And I agree that it needs to be adhered to in terms of reporting back on a regular basis. And I think once a month is a reasonable expectation. So I personally would like to see this go through, and I hope the rest of you here tonight feel the same way. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Wolf. Any further discussion on Article 6 as presented? Yes, sir, in the back.
David Horton, I'm 246 West Street. I've been in town for, 14 years or so. My wife grew up here. I'm volunteering for the building committee, so I'm one of the outside guys that's on the building committee. I met one time. Haven't even met Lauren yet. Anyway, I'm here to say I support this, and I'm volunteering my time to get involved and help the town with this building. So I really ask everybody to vote for it right now. I'll try to answer some of the questions. As far as my point of view, I'm a registered professional engineer and I work in construction every day. So I work on fixing old buildings in Boston and involved with new construction. So that's why I kind of brought myself to the table. And there's another guy in the committee too who's a general contractor. He is involved with development of big buildings in Boston. So Anyway, I'm a little nervous, but I just want to say I support this, and that some of the questions that were asked were good questions. Mr. Walsh, like you said, now is the time. How we got here is kind of messy, like here we are. I agree with that. But it is, like, this is our on-ramp to get in on the process, because like was shared, all the other towns in the state are trying to do the same thing, and we were given this opportunity this year. So if we don't decide tonight to at least start the process, we lose our opportunity for the next 2 to 3 years. That's my understanding. So the cost is $1 million because architectural firms like mine spend hundreds of hours doing these feasibility studies, and it just racks up that much money. But it really is a big picture look at the school building, you know, evaluating the existing building, looking at different sites around town where a new building could possibly be built. How do you deal with the kids in the meantime? So it covers all those things, and it kind of gives you some options at the end of the study. So that's the starting point, the on-ramp that we have to take if we want any state funding for this project. Otherwise, we're going to be on our own trying to fix bad roofs and bad boilers and all this stuff. And I can tell you from my experience, you want that state money. So it's worth it tonight to vote for the $1 million to get us going, and then we'll be able to see whether it's fixing the existing building, which I understand the state is interested in us fixing the existing building. They've already invested in the roof and the boilers. So there's a good chance we will be able to, you know, save the old building. But we also have to do our due diligence and look at other options too. So that's how it goes. And it's going to be a long process, but we have to start tonight. Otherwise, we do go to the back of the line with other towns, and it'll be a couple years before we have this opportunity again. So, and I'm happy to answer questions afterwards.
Thank you very much. Any further discussion on Article 6 as presented? I see somebody. Oh, okay. Why'd you come up? I know she was deferring to you.
Ed Smith, Plymouth Street. For those of you who have been to town meetings in the past, yeah, he's back. Central School. I don't oppose the idea that we've got to do something down there. Those temporary modules and all, you know, when did we build those? We haven't brought them in like 15 years ago or something? Ridiculous. Issue I have is twofold. First of all, Mr. Walsh talked about transparency and honest and open and all this. Totally agree. The problem is we have a kind of a dark track record in this town. We had a building, now it's called Prospect Street, always was on North Bedford, but school building can never be fixed, it's terrible, get rid of it and all this. It's still there, and it's in good use. So I don't quite get that. Well, the central school is there. The central school, since the central school was built, we built the middle school, and we built a brand new high school after the central school. Let me tell you, but where is that brand new high school that we built? It's gone. It's gone. It fell apart. Why is the central school still standing? Because back in the day, can't quite remember it, but so I've been told, when they built the central school, they had all these state requirements and to do this and do that, and the town of East Bridgewater told them to pound sand and built it themselves. They didn't have all these requirements, and you got to do this, and blessed be what the requirements would be today with all the other, well, I won't even get to the social programs and all this other kind of stuff. But did it ourselves, and it's still there. It's still standing, and we just heard it's probably worth fixing, which is probably a good idea. The problem I have is maybe there's another way. Before, what we did ourselves is still there. The high school is gone. The old high school, building's there, but we don't have it as a school anymore. This type of thing. The other side of things that I have a real problem with is some track records here to say when it comes to these, we're hearing, we got to do it tonight. It's tonight or we lose it, or else. Okay? I don't know if it's got to be tonight or what the deadline might be, and I don't know a lot of the details, and I don't know the answers, but I have to ask the question. And these feasibility studies, which are a requirement, so here's a state requirement imposed on us. We got to spend $1.5 million just to find out. And we got to do it the way they want it done. Well, we had another project down in Sachem Rock Farm, and we were told early on, we just want to study it. We just want to look into it. We're not committing to do it. We're just going to study. Well, yeah. And then what do we hear? Oh, we already spent this money to study it, now we kind of have to go forward. So let's be upfront and open about it. Transparency, okay? We need to handle our kids. We need to take care of our kids. We need to give them a good education. As some people might not realize this, I totally support a good education. I'm willing to pay for a good education for our kids. Show me a good education and I'll pay for it. We need to have that return, that transparency, that open. And I'm not to speak to this town necessarily, but overall, what's the education system doing in this country? You know, listen to the news. They can't even, coming out of 10th grade, and they can't add 2 and 2 and come up with any less than 5. You know, you got to get a return on investment. Do we really need to be locked into this $1.5 million to find out if we might qualify for it, what we might qualify for, and then be told, well, we already spent $1.5 million, now we have to do this? I'm not sure that's right. Are there other answers? Is there a better way? I don't know the answer, but I got to ask the question. Thank you.
Thank you. No, this person for you first. Come on down. You can come down to this mic if you want, if you're going to want to make your way down to this mic.
Kristen Hall, 48 Belmont Street. I'm not an engineer. I'm a stay-at-home mom. I have 4 children, 6, 4, 2, and brand new, 2 months old. I am in the central school all the time because I have a first grader and a preschooler who will next year be in kindergarten. I don't know when the last time anyone in here has been in the building. Some of you may be in there often. Some of you may not be. The building needs help. These kids deserve a building that they can go to and they can learn and they can get the education they deserve. When we had the open house this year, it was August 30th, and we went into my son's first grade classroom, which was so hot that I have no idea how they could possibly focus on anything other than being totally uncomfortable all day. Something has to be done. I strongly, strongly support that we put towards the money in the town and make sure that these kids get what they deserve, because like was already previously said, unless you invest in these kids, what do we have? What do we have? You have to invest in these kids.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Maluski. I'm at 440 Union Street. My daughter goes to Central School, and I'm also a representative on the school council. I also happen to be a 20-year educator. I work for Boston Public Schools as an executive director of STEM. So I'm in Boston Public Schools. I'm very familiar with building renovations and the need for building renovations. I'm also very aware of what kids need. We have the Central School, along with Mrs. Byrne, has done a wonderful job of providing our kids with a very good and solid education. Kids feel like they belong. However, it's not just the curriculum and the adults in the building that make an educational experience for kids. Kids need to have a safe space, a place that's comfortable. My daughter goes to school wearing like 900 layers because in the morning it's cold outside. There's no air conditioning because of the window systems. These feasibility studies allow us to determine what the status of the building is so you can figure it out. And I want to just encourage that these are estimates. All of these pieces are estimates. And so thinking that we don't know if it's a renovation, you don't know what the degree of the renovation is. However, the investment in it and what you can get back allows us to actually make an informed decision to create a community and a culture and a building that actually works for our kids and the educators. Kids had a long year in the pandemic, and there needs a lot of support and space. In addition to that, the gym is tiny For kids to run around in there, there's not a lot of running around that can actually happen. The classrooms are tiny. To have 20 kids in there of all different abilities and to be able to have all of the equipment needed in there, as well as all of the tools that are needed as far as the curriculum is concerned, there's not a lot of space for the adults. And in a lot of these classrooms, there's more than one adult on top of the kids. So I really encourage you to take on this feasibility study. It is a positive investment for our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on Article 6 is presented? Mr. Nelson, and I'm going to wrap it up. Three hand up, all right, I'm going to come down to the mic. These two are going to be the last two. All right, wait, all right, him, then you, and that'll be that wrap. No, come to the mic, sir. Mr. Nelson first.
Mr. Moderator, there's been a lot of discussion about accountability. I would like to make a motion that the letter that was read with the concerns of the Finance Committee become part of the motion that sits before us. It needs to be incorporated into that motion.
All right, hold on a second. So everything has to stop for a minute. We have a motion to amend the article. Do you have a copy of that letter that you can submit? Hold it for now. So this is a two-step process. We have a motion to amend. So we're going to vote on the motion to amend. Not what he's going to add into it, but the motion to amend. Any discussion on that aspect of it? Okay, no, okay. All in favor of the motion to amend?
No,
say aye.
Mr. Moderator.
Aye. Yes, Town Council.
The motion that is before voters comes from the Mass School Building Authority. It comes from our bond council. It is very specifically worded to qualify potentially for the grant program and potentially for borrowing. By amending it, it's not clear to me that those other third parties will still either make it available for funding through a loan or grant reimbursement. I would respectfully suggest that Mr. Nelson's motion would be better handled as a separate resolution for the body to vote on.
Just a resolution. So if you don't understand what he's saying, is this wording and stuff comes down from MSBA and other entities that we have to follow?
Yes.
All right, so we're going to withdraw that motion to amend. I'm going to have Mr. Nelson first on that.
How would you propose that that be attached to this article to ensure that that is met what the Finance Committee wants?
So my suggestion is that the body take this up separately as a resolution where town meeting is expressing its intent, if they so wish to have this letter entered into the record. But it would not be part of the voted motion for this article, because again, it could trigger non-eligibility for a grant or potentially create a problem when we borrow. Its town meeting will be expressing its will, but it just wouldn't be attached to this particular vote.
So Don, here's what I suggest, based on Mr. Clifford's explanation, that we vote on the article as presented. I'm going to let Mr. Walsh and somebody else speak. We vote on the article that's presented when the time comes. Depending on how that goes, then separately, you ask the town board here to accept the resolution, and that goes to the intent, but that'll be part of the record.
Correct.
It'll be made part of this record.
And that's done here tonight.
Yep. Yes. Yep. So we're going to.
I withdraw my motion then.
So the motion to amend is withdrawn. So you want to take a seat down? I'll have you come back up for the resolution.
No, I'll withdraw my motion.
Yeah, but you want to present the resolution, right?
Yes.
All right. So just take a seat right there for a second, Don. Sir.
My name is Paul Roach, and I live at 40 Northridge Drive in East Bridgewater. I have a daughter. She's out of the central school, so my skin in this game is as a tax-paying East Bridgewater resident, and I fully support this project for two reasons. One, we have to move forward with the feasibility study. I heard the number $80 million, and if they're funding 57%, that would make an $80 million project 37 or 35 million on behalf of the taxpayers, and you just have to move forward with that. If we waited a couple years, as the gentleman pointed out, inflation, costs, all that stuff is going up. Whether it's 5 or 10 years, the project could, maybe double or go up half. So now you're talking 120 million. So for people that are concerned with their taxes, would you rather, pay taxes on 35 million or maybe 120 million, 5, 6 years from now? Also, for people that are concerned about their taxes, which they should really be concerned with is their home values. Because if we don't do this and we have crumbling schools, your property's going to be worth nothing. I mean, granted, there's, other factors such as proximity to Boston or by the water, but there's reason why the home values in towns like Needham, Weston, Hingham, Duxbury are, significantly higher than ours. Their schools and their infrastructure are palaces. And, that's what we owe to our kids. That's what we owe to the town. And if paying $1.5 million is our gateway to potentially saving us $65 million, it's a no-brainer. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roach. This is going to be the last speaker on this article. Mr. Hamilton.
Tom Hamilton, 930 Bridge Street, East Bridgewater. I just have a couple of questions for you. I heard, and I didn't know anything about this project till a friend of mine told me to watch the selectmen's meeting last week. So I did, and I was a little surprised that nobody really knew about it. It was a secret, and I think that the transparency issue that Mr. Wall spoke about is important. Having been on the committee to build this school, we're as transparent as could be. We had multiple meetings with the public. We took it to the seniors, brought seniors in, brought all the different levels of schools, the students, the parents from the different schools in, even before we went for the feasibility study. Now, I guess to the school committee, the paperwork isn't due to the state till the end of December, is it? All right, and there was talk about maybe delaying the vote on this until more people could be aware of it. And I think that, I'm not against this project, don't get me wrong, but the biggest thing that's going to help you sell this is the transparency to the taxpayers in the town. So I would suggest that you delay this enough so that you can get the word out, meet with the people, meet with the public, have open houses, have tours of the school, have a presentation of what the school looks like now, and all of that. That's all I want to say. That's my suggestion to them, is to maybe delay it.
Are you, Tom, just give me a second, are you looking for a motion to pass over at this time?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to pass over it.
So at this time, we have a motion to pass this over. I didn't hear what your answer was, Ms. Foster. It has to be in by the end of the year, correct?
Yes.
All right. Mr. Clifford.
Mr. Moderator, a vote against this article would have the same effect, so I think when you get to a vote on the article, I don't think you need a separate motion to pass over.
All right, so we should entertain the vote first.
Correct.
All right. Fine with you, Mr.?
I have no idea what you just said, but I'll go by what you say.
Pardon?
What are you passing?
Oh, Mr. Clifford, town council said if this article is defeated, it needs 2/3. If it's defeated, it's like a passover. So he's saying, well, we don't know what the outcome's going to be, but to have the vote on the article that's presented, the motion that's presented.
Right, but I think what I'm looking at is the transparency that they need to do for the public right from square one, all the way to the end of the
Capital Committee for a
process.
second. Mr. Walsh.
Yeah. So I just want to say that, I personally am not pleased at the process and the lack of communication. I believe that it's brought enough attention to it now that we can be confident that there will be communication and oversight. I want to go back, and I want to just, a quick shot of history here is, we talked about, we built a central school, and then we built a high school, we tore it down. It's because we didn't take care of it. We never appropriated the funding to properly maintain that building, or any building. We had many, many years of no capital projects. When BFI left this and the landfill left, we were crazy fools, spending money like crazy, and then we couldn't get out from underneath it. In the early 2000s, we almost went into receivership. We've dug our way out of that. We're going to go through a little bit of a tough financial time now with some of the things we have in front of us, but it will eventually flow out. I would recommend, we're going to need to do this anyway. Whether we do it now or in December, we're going to need to do this anyway. The school is old. Maybe structurally it's fine, maybe what we'll end up doing is renovating it, but we don't know that until we do the feasibility study. So I would recommend, I am very confident that there will be follow-through and communication. This has been hopped on a lot. Everybody knows the strong feelings about it, and I think we just draw the public into it, but I think we need to move ahead.
You all set, Mr. Hamilton?
I'm all set.
All right, I'm going to close the question. We're going to vote on the motion that's before you. Everyone knows what that is, right? Allocated at $1.5 million for basically for a
Feasibility study.
feasibility study, thank you. Again, this requires 2/3. So, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Article 7, we're passing over. Article 8, Foster.
Mr. Moderator?
The
Oh, I'm sorry.
resolution.
Before we go on, sorry, on. Yep. Why don't you stand up and make that resolution? If you remember what this is going to be, a resolution.
I would defer to John Clifford on this one because he knows what he wants.
Well, I think John's not a town resident. So I think what you have to, I think what you said would be it. The resolution you made, what you said as far as the amended motion could be a resolution. Correct, John?
I think what Mr. Nelson suggested is that there be a resolution by town meeting to support the letter written by the Finance Committee.
And that letter can be attached to the resolution.
That's correct.
I'll move that as a resolution.
No, we have a motion for a resolution. This is basically like a non-binding, but it gets submitted to the record, and you have to provide that letter to the clerk today. Because it has to be the one you read. I'm not saying it wouldn't be otherwise. All right, so we have a resolution. Any discussion on the resolution? Seeing none, all in favor of the resolution, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Resolution gets submitted. Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Now we can go to Article 8. Ms. Foster.
To see if the town will vote to transfer funds, the sum of $7,850 from account number 800-359-3190, general stabilization, to account number 191-300-5241, maintenance of grounds, to supplement the facilities budget for FY 2024, testing done for the AstroTurf field at the junior senior high school, or take any other action thereon or in relation thereto.
I have a motion or a second. Motion made, seconded. For discussion, Ms. Foster, if any.
We, over the summer, had the turf assessed for usability, and this pays for that.
Thank you. Any further discussion on Article 8 as presented? Seeing none, all in favor of Article 8, present, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Article 9, Ms. Kavanaugh.
I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate funds the sum of $3,000 to account 1-161-510-5126, clerical salaries, and $3,000 to account number 1-161-510-5125, administrative support, to make changes in the town clerk budget for overtime.
I have a motion, do I have a second? Second. Second for discussion, if any, Ms. Kavanaugh.
The purpose of this article is that with the recent overtime and compensatory policy approved on July 17th that allows departments to request added overtime if hardships arise, the Votes Act has permanently instated early voting, increasing responsibilities to the town clerk's office, especially during peak periods. These duties require additional work hours and necessitate more staffing. For consistent budgeting, based on past data, we estimate the overtime cost would be about $3,000 per election.
for 2 employees.
Thank you, Mr. Kavanaugh. Any further discussion on Article 9 is presented? Nobody ever wants to put more money in the town moderator's salary. Seeing none, all in favor of Article 9 is presented, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Article 9 passes. Article 10, Mr. Spagone.
Yes, Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate funds, the sum of $2,250 to account number 1-141-510-5126, assessor's payroll to fund special longevity request for a staff member in the assessor's office.
A motion, do I have a second? Motion made, seconded. Off for discussion, if any.
My question would be, what's the funding source? We don't list the funding source.
It's reasonable.
Oh, okay, sorry.
No.
Question, what's the funding source?
Raise and appropriate.
Raise and appropriate.
To raise and appropriate is what I'm getting the answer from town council.
That's what your motion says.
Yes.
Any further discussion on Article 10 is presented? Seeing none, all in favor of Article 10, say aye. Opposed? It passes. Article 11, Ms. Julie, Select Board.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate funds the sum of $3,300 to account number 1-220-599-5790, assessors payroll to fund a retroactive payment to a staff member in the assessor's office for an education incentive.
A motion, do I have a second? Motion made, seconded. Ms. Julie, for discussion, if any.
This was something that we funded that wasn't part of the regular budget for someone who did some college training.
Thank you. Any further discussion on Article 11 is presented? Ms. Wolf?
You know, I have a question about Article 7.
Pass that over.
Oh, you passed over. Okay, I'm sorry. In all the flurry after we passed 6, I missed out on that.
Oh, we passed that over at the beginning. We passed that over at the beginning of the meeting. We passed that over 2, 3, 7, and 18.
Oh, I got 2, 3, and 18.
7 also.
Bingo.
Thank you. I stand corrected.
Thanks. Any further discussion on Article 11 that's presented? Seeing none. All in favor of Article 11 as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Article 11 passes. Article 12, Chief Harron.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to transfer funds, the sum of $60,000 from account number 22231-835-4270, ambulance receipts reserved for appropriation, to account number 1-220-511-5148, additional compensation other, to partially cover the overtime cost to send 4 new firefighters to the fire academy, so the fire department is not understaffed.
I have a motion, do I have a second? Second. Motion made, seconded. Chief, for discussion, if any.
I currently have 4 firefighters who are out on long-term on-the-job injury or an illness, and I have 4 members that have to attend the fire academy, and that will leave the department understaffed during the day and night.
Thank you. Any further discussion on Article 12 as presented? Seeing none, all in favor of Article 12 as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Article 12 passes.
Thank you.
Chief, Article 13.
I move that the town vote to transfer funds the sum of $1,116 from account number 103593590, free cash, to account number 1-220-520-5585, supplies fire safety equipment, to pay a prior year bill from 911 Safety Equipment LLC.
I have a motion, do I have a second? Motion made, seconded. Chief, for discussion, if any.
Yeah, this was, we rent fire gear when we send members to the academy, because the gear gets beat up, and a set of gear costs between $3,500 and $4,000 per person. So we rent gear for about $400 a piece, and when they sent the rental gear, apparently they sent the invoice with it back in March, and I never saw it. And when we ordered new gear, or new rental gear in August, they said, hey, you owe us $1,116, so.
Thank you. This requires a 9/10 vote. All in favor? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of Article 13 as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Moderator declares unanimous. Article 14, Chief.
Last but not least, I move that the town vote to transfer funds the sum of $8,302.50 from account number 103593590 free cash to account number 12205205585 supplies fire safety equipment to pay a prior year bill from Motorola.
I have a motion, do I have a second? Motion made, second. Chief, for discussion, if any?
Yeah, the police and fire department's receiver site up on Highland Street failed back in September of 2020. And we ordered a new receiver for it that came in August of this year. And quite honestly, I think I met with Capital, I met with Finance to transfer money around to cover this within my budget. But when the end of the year came, I never encumbered it. So the money turned to free cash.
Finance Committee recommendation?
Recommend the article.
Thank you. Again, this requires a 9/10 vote. Any further discussion on Article 14 as presented? Seeing none, all in favor of Article 14 as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Article 14 unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Mr. Spagone, Article 15.
Yes, Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to transfer funds, the sum of $102,056.16 from account number 1-0-359-3590 free cash to account number 80122-3604-4680 opiate stabilization fund.
I have a motion, I have a second. Motion made, seconded for the Finance Committee recommendation.
Recommend the article.
Thank you, Mr. Spagone, for discussion, if any.
I read this for Mr. Sheedy because he couldn't read it, so I don't have any discussion. I'll defer to town administrator.
So the town had previously appropriated this money for opioid addiction prevention and remediation. What we were told by the state was that on June 30th, we needed to return that money back into free cash. However, that money cannot be used for anything else but that stated purpose. We established a stabilization fund on July 1st. The money would be transferred into that stabilization fund, and then at sometime in the future, we'll be back at town meeting to make a specific appropriation as to how to use that money. You'll be the ones voting as to how to use that money. But for now, what we want to do is, for safekeeping, in essence, put it back into the stabilization fund.
Thank you, Charlie. Any further discussion on Article 15 as presented? Seeing none, all in favor of Article 15 as presented, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Article 15 passes. Article 16, is Mr. Riley here? There he is. Okay, I have a motion to pass over Article 16. Any discussion?
Just, sorry, I know I'm not a resident, I'm just asking why.
Oh.
At this point, the planning board feels that there needs to be additional research done in comparison with the provisions that have been adopted by other communities, just to make sure that we're covering the bases that we need to cover with regard to permitting and particularly exemptions or exceptions.
I guess I'll just have to show up at a planning board meeting then.
More than welcome.
Thank you, Kevin. So I have a motion to pass over Article 16. Do I have a second? Second. Do we have any discussion on that? Seeing none, all in favor of passing over Article 16, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Article Article 18. No, 17. Article 17, Ms. Julius, Board of Selectmen, Select Board.
Mr. Moderator, just to make people aware, the numbers are going to be different than what's printed that I'm going to read.
Mostly different?
What's that?
Mostly different because I think...
I don't know, I can't see
Council?
what's up on the screen.
It'll be up here, though.
What's on the screen is correct.
We don't have to do a motion to amend, do we, John?
No.
Still the same intent?
Just that what's printed in the warrant isn't, but what's on the screen is
thank you.
the correct one. I move that the town vote to appropriate $162,333.22 from account number 35-0-359-35301 Central School Boiler and $200,000 from the Capital Stabilization Fund. Is the account number printed up there because it's not here? Yes. To account number 30-610-6006-5625, library roof and HVAC to pay costs of the library flat roof replacement HVAC project, which amount shall be used in addition to the $814,120 borrowing authorization approved June 5th, 2023, Article 4.
I have a motion, do I have a second? Second, Finance Committee recommendation?
Finance Committee recommended to delay vote on this article.
For discussion, if any, Ms. Julius.
What about the capital?
Okay, you're not on my list there.
I'm telling you now.
Capital recommendation.
Capital Committee heard about this tonight. We did not vote on this.
Wait a second. I'm going to go to Ms. Julius for discussion first.
There are people that can speak better than I can on this. I will just say that the bids that came in just last week were higher significantly than we anticipated, and that's
Can
what the
I
amount
ask you to just clarify the numbers? So, we have 162, 333.22.
Right, and
Then we
then,
have an additional 200?
correct, and then the 814,
And then the 814 that was already
120 was voted back in June to do. So that's not enough, and that's why we've.
We're adding 362,000.
Correct.
Mr. Litchfield?
Bridge Street. Once again, we're looking for $162,000 to renovation for a hydrovac at this library.
Hold on a second. Don't, if you want to speak, you have to come up and announce yourself. First of all, I think the figure is 362, because they added 200,000 in.
All right. Has anybody talked to MassSave.com to see what they're going to give for assistance to this program? There's many grants out here, many programs available. You can go in here, they'll come in and do the heat, renovation, other things. I can't believe that the money is out here available and nobody's been in the towns here taking advantage of these programs that are set forth by these utility companies. They're out here giving the money away. Why ain't we applying? It's a simple question. They're going around giving money away, thousands of dollars. And we're not taking advantage of these programs? Why not? We're coming in, we're renovating these buildings, these schools, other things. We're putting heating, we're putting lights in. There's money available for the Edison Gas Company and other things for these projects to be done. Why ain't we soliciting this money? Why is this money going unheard? It's unbelievable. I'm in this business. I'm 80 years old. I've been in this business all my life. There's programs out here that are available for the cities, towns, and everybody. We're not taking advantage of them. This is ridiculous.
Cal,
Mr. Moderator, if I could, I
Cal, did you
believe
say somebody could speak more to it better than you?
Brian Kiley can answer that question, because I know he knows about
Kiley.
the Mass Save in relation
Thank you.
to this
But
particular
Is he also the one that
project.
provides information for the work? You said somebody knows the work better than you.
Yes, Mr. Kiley could also explain the bid process and why it came higher.
Brian Kiley, 6 Marville Way. I'm also the facilities manager for the town. The library roof project is a library roof, the flat roof on the addition that went on in the 70s, and replacing the rooftop AC unit, which currently only services the first floor of the library and the addition. So we went out and did the schematic design with an architect, got cost estimates a year ago, with an escalator on it. Bids come in this week, and the lowest responsible bidder is $1,087,000. That includes electrical, the roof, and the new HVAC unit. We just got those bids Thursday, and we appropriated $814,000 last year at town meeting. So there is not enough money to do this project. Either we appropriate more money, or we don't do the project. As far as grant money, the town is a green community now. Last year we got a $200,000 green community grant. You cannot use those grants for anything that uses fossil fuel. So it needs to be used for weatherization or lighting, or a VFD or a motor. It can't be used for a rooftop unit or anything, any mechanical thing that uses a fossil fuel. That's Mass Save's law and Green Communities law. We do have grant money available for the library that we're looking to do some weatherization on the building, which will be paid for with Green Communities grant money.
Thank you, Mr. Kiley. Mr. Gardner?
Yes, Roy Gardner, 27 Grove Street. A couple of questions here. The first one being, what's the real number? Because twice I heard a number 300,000 being added. Everything up on the screen says 162,000 being added. So we don't have the motion apparently.
Isn't it on the screen with the extra 200,000?
No, it's not.
Okay.
Secondly, I thought I heard in the motion that they were transferring money from a school building project that's under the control of the state school building authority for part of the budget. The state was just auditing that account for the roof and the heating system a very short time ago, according to their website. We're now talking about taking money out of what we had appropriated. My understanding is their reimbursement was based on the cost, which was based on the estimate we had that was in that account. So I don't understand why we're looking at that location to get money from. I think we need to either transfer it from available funds and find some other way to use that excess bond money if it truly is excess. Because there's nothing here that explains any of that other than a number which isn't even up on the screen.
And Mr. Seeley can answer the question about why the money could come from the central school boiler.
Just let me clarify, because I thought, so it's 162, which is in the motion, and then an additional 200, which is not in the motion that's presented.
Right, and the additional 200,000 would be from capital stabilization fund.
And that's why it's a two-thirds. All right, so Mr. Gardner, there is 362,000 and change that they're asking for.
Okay, well, as a taxpayer in town, I have a serious issue when we've got a warrant that's already printed and was printed a while ago, and we just found out within the last couple of weeks that the amount of a bid is going to be higher than the amount of the money we appropriated way back. This is the second time tonight that we've had a financial issue in front of us that seems to pop up instantly. And even the Finance Committee obviously had an issue with it from what their comment was. The other issue on the previous one, and I'll give my kudos to Mr. Nelson for raising that issue. This town had that letter putting us into that program in December of last year. 99% of the town doesn't know about that. The Mass School Building Authority put us into that program for that feasibility study December of last year. Understood.
I know what you're saying, but let's stick to this article.
This is the second time it's happened tonight. To me, that's unacceptable as a taxpayer. We shouldn't be finding about these things a few days before a town meeting. That doesn't work for me.
Any further discussion on Article 17 as presented?
Let me answer the question.
You got to come up.
Melanie Dean, 627 Spring Street. I'm also the town accountant. I can speak to the 162,000, the questions that were just asked. When we did the MSBA boiler project, we were required to borrow for the entire project and then receive reimbursement. So the borrowing, once we received full reimbursement, was more than we needed. So that money, because it was borrowed, has very limited purposes in what we can repurpose it for. It needs to be repurposed to something of a similar project length of the boiler, and the roof is the only project outstanding right now that fits that requirement. So we have the 162,000 that we've had since the boiler project, and this is an opportunity to put it to use where the bids came in higher than we expected.
Thank you. So any further discussion on Article 17 is presented? Mr. Nelson?
Two-thirds.
Charlie? Well, Ms. Nelson, go ahead, Charlie.
So if it's voted down tonight, what we'll need to do, unless the town doesn't want to do anything with the roof, is go out to bid again. It is likely going to be at a higher price than even what we would pay tonight between the original appropriation back in May, the additional money from the boiler project, and the additional money from the capital stabilization fund, since I suspect, as all of you realize, if you're doing your own home projects, nothing's getting any cheaper. So we want to save the library building because the town had made the decision to keep that building rather than build a new one. If you want to save the building, you got to do the roof, because without the roof, you got no building. So if it's a no vote tonight, we'll go back out to bid. We'll be back here at some point, probably with a higher number. And yes, I agree with the speaker's points that it's all happening fairly quickly. It's a matter of the calendar. We scheduled our town meeting. We scheduled the bids. I wish we had more time between when the bids came in and town meeting. That's not the case for this article.
Mrs. Nelson.
Lois Nelson, 30 Stonebridge Way. I'm also a member of the East Bridgewater Historical Commission. And the commission voted when we found out that there was actually plans.
Mrs. Nelson, could you either get the mic to you, which doesn't fall on you, but just try to hold, maybe if you hold it.
There we go. I'm also a member of the Historical Commission, and when we started hearing back in the spring that the library was in process of getting an article on this, we took a vote in one of our meetings to make sure that some one of us could stand up and say that the Historical Commission strongly supports this. Okay, why? There's water running into that building. Now, granted, it's the new part, the part that was done in the 70s, but we've got a beautiful historical building built in the 1800s that's attached to that 1970s building. We've got to preserve this building. We've got to have libraries. They don't need to go away just because there are computers. We need libraries. We didn't get to follow through on taking off that old edition and putting on a new one. Someone that I know that's in the roofing business says that kind of roof is good for 25 years, and it went on when? Do the math. We've already got twice its lifetime out of it. I don't want my taxes to go up. I don't want to spend a lot of money, but I'm a realist. If we don't spend the money now, as the gentleman just said, we're going to be spending a lot more later. We've got to work on transparency. We've got to work on communication. We've got to work on it, yes. But just because we're not getting it quite the way we want it doesn't mean we don't need it, and I think we should support this article and vote yes.
Thank you. Any further discussion on Article 17?
Mr. Moderator, if I may.
Julius.
Just to reiterate what Mrs. Nelson said, and not to put too fine a point on it, but we did come and we considered a new library. I was on that building committee, and ultimately the trustees decided not to go forward with that project because it was too expensive. But we have a building and we have to take care of it. And how many times do we hear people at this meeting say, why didn't you appropriate? Why didn't you put the money in that you needed to do to take care of that building and maintain it? That's what this is. This is maintaining a roof and an HVAC system, and it needs to be done. And if we put it off down the road, then we're going to suffer and the library is going to have damage. So I understand that the money, the way it was done with the way the bid came in late, is not ideal, but that doesn't mean that it's a good idea to put this off. We need to invest in that building because we're not going to build a new one. This is how we show our support for the buildings we already have. Thank you. Says the librarian. Yes.
So I guess my question is, how do we stop situations like this, that 24 hours or the day of, we found out we're changing the numbers on a warrant? How can we better communicate between departments, the select board, the committees, et cetera? So he's right. It's happened twice tonight. Very uncomfortable feeling when we have processes in place. This is something we have to do. As a member of the Capital Committee, we supported projects for the library. We understand its importance. We fixed the floors, we were fixing the walls, we did all sorts of stuff this year. I'm very disappointed in the way this town is handling things right now in regards to getting things on a warrant. I feel like they're being rushed through the system and pushed through. People in this community need to know what's going on before the night of a vote. That being said, once again, we're in the situation where it's something we need to do, and ultimately I believe that this would have passed through the Capital Committee if it was presented for that $200,000. So I would say,
I would recommend we support this, but God forbid this happens again. This cannot happen again.
All right, we're going to vote on it now. All in favor of Article 17 as presented.
Two-thirds.
And I'm going to read it to you, just so you, because I have a copy. Did they fix it? I'm going to read it for you. And I'll read it slow, because I know I talk fast. I want to get out of here like you guys. So this is the motion, and I'm just reading that was presented. I move that the town vote to appropriate $162,333.22 from account number 35-0-359-35301, Central School Boiler, and $200,000 from the Capital Stabilization Fund. I don't know the account number. It's not on the one they handed me tonight, so do we have what that number is? Anybody? What is the Capital Stabilization account number? We have that. It's not in even the one that was handed to me tonight.
80-0.
Oh, 80?
80-0-359-3911.
3911? All right, so I'm going to put that number in there. 80-0-359-3911 to account number 30610-6006-5625. Library roof and HVAC to pay costs of the library flat roof replacement HVAC project, which amounts shall be used in addition to the $814,120 borrowing authorization approved June 5th, 2023, Article 4.
Two-thirds vote, Mr. Moderator.
Pardon?
Two-thirds vote.
Yeah, I'm going to get there. This requires a two-thirds vote. All in favor of Article 17 as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. The chair determines it passed by two-thirds. That's me. And that's the end of the meeting. So I'll take a motion.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second, all in favor. Have good holidays, guys. Hopefully we won't be back before next year. Thank you for coming.